Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're journeying back to a pivotal, yet often misunderstood, chapter of the 20th century, the Spanish Civil War. Fought from 1936 to 1939, this conflict was more than just a domestic struggle. It was a brutal rehearsal for World War II, a battleground of ideologies, and the tragic prelude to a nearly 40-year dictatorship. So, how did Spain, a nation of rich culture and history, descend into such a devastating war? Let's find out. To understand the explosion of 1936, we have to rewind a bit. The early 1930s in Spain were a time of immense hope and tension. In 1931, the monarchy was peacefully abolished, and the Second Spanish Republic was born. This new government was ambitious. It promised land reform for impoverished peasants, autonomy for regions like Catalonia and the Basque Country, a reduction in the power of the Catholic Church, and modernization of the military. For many, it felt like the dawn of a new, progressive era. However, these reforms were deeply divisive. The powerful landowners, the conservative military elite, and the influential Catholic Church saw the Republic as a threat to their traditional status and the very fabric of Spanish society. The country became a political powder keg, polarized between two major factions. On one side, you had the Republicans, or Loyalists. This was a broad and often disunited coalition of centrists, liberals, socialists, communists, and anarchists, all united primarily by their desire to defend the democratically elected government. On the other side were the Nationalists, led by a group of rebellious military generals. This faction included monarchists who wanted to restore the king, traditionalist Catholic groups, and the Falange, Spain's fascist party. They rallied behind a vision of a centralized, authoritarian, and staunchly Catholic Spain, seeking to cleanse the nation of what they saw as foreign, leftist influences. The political climate grew increasingly violent, with street clashes and assassinations becoming commonplace. The stage was set for a confrontation. The spark ignited on July 17, 1936. A carefully planned military coup was launched by generals across Spain and its Moroccan territories. Their plan was to swiftly seize control of major cities and topple the Republic, but they miscalculated. The coup failed to secure key urban centers like Madrid and Barcelona, where workers, militias, and loyal security forces fiercely resisted. Instead of a quick takeover, the country fractured. The military uprising had plunged Spain into a full-scale civil war. The war quickly drew international attention. This wasn't just Spain's fight anymore. It became a proxy war for the great ideological struggles of the era. Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy saw a golden opportunity. They threw their support behind the nationalist leader, General Franco, providing him with thousands of troops, modern aircraft, tanks, and crucial logistical support. Hitler's Condor Legion, for instance, infamously bombed the Basque town of Guernica in 1937, an atrocity immortalized by Picasso's masterpiece. This support was decisive, giving the nationalists a significant military edge. And what about the Republic? The democratic nations of the world, like Britain, France, and the United States, were wary of another European war and fearful of the communist elements within the Republican side. They adopted an official policy of non-intervention, effectively placing an arms embargo on the legitimate Spanish government. This decision left the Republic isolated and at a severe disadvantage. Its primary source of foreign aid came from the Soviet Union, which provided weapons and advisors, but often at a steep political and financial price. Yet, the Republic was not entirely alone. The cause of Spanish democracy inspired a remarkable wave of international solidarity. Over 35,000 volunteers from more than 50 countries, known as the International Brigades, traveled to Spain to fight fascism. These were writers, artists, miners, and factory workers, including figures like George Orwell and Ernest Hemingway, who believed that if they didn't stop fascism in Madrid, they would soon be fighting it in Paris or London. Their bravery became legendary, a symbol of idealism in a brutal conflict. The war itself was savage. Both sides committed terrible atrocities. The nationalists carried out systematic purges in the territories they conquered, targeting anyone associated with the Republic. The Republicans, particularly in the early chaotic days, saw anti-clerical violence and summary executions of suspected nationalist sympathizers. It was a war of front lines, but also a war in the shadows, where neighbors turned against neighbors, and fear reigned supreme. Cities were besieged, civilians starved, and the battlefield became a testing ground for new, terrifying methods of warfare, like strategic bombing of civilian populations. For 3 long years, Spain bled. The nationalists, better organized, better equipped, and unified under Franco's single command, steadily gained ground. The Republicans, on the other hand, were plagued by internal divisions. The deep ideological splits between communists, socialists, and anarchists sometimes erupted into open conflict behind their own lines, fatally weakening their war effort. Despite moments of incredible Republican resistance, such as the defense of Madrid with the rallying cry, "No pasarán," they shall not pass, the tide was irreversible. By early 1939, the Republican cause was lost. Catalonia fell, and hundreds of thousands of desperate civilian and military refugees made a harrowing journey across the Pyrenees Mountains into France, where they were often interned in harsh camps. On April 1, 1939, General Franco declared victory. The war was over. The cost was staggering: an estimated 500,000 lives lost, cities in ruins, and a society deeply traumatized and divided. The end of the war was not the beginning of peace, but the start of a long and oppressive dictatorship. Generalissimo Francisco Franco would rule Spain with an iron fist until his death in 1975. Political opposition was ruthlessly suppressed, regional cultures were repressed, and Spain was isolated from much of the world for decades. The hopes of the Second Republic were buried. The Spanish Civil War serves as a powerful reminder of how fragile democracy can be, how quickly ideological divides can erupt into violence, and how international politics can seal a nation's fate. It's a complex and sorrowful story, but one we must remember to understand the forces that shaped the 20th century and continue to resonate today. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into history. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more explorations of the past. Let me know in the comments what historical topic you'd like to see covered next. Until then, take care.